president says it's much ado about nothing, that turnover isn't necessarily a bad thing, and that replacing top economic advisor Gary Cohn will be easy.
Believe me, everybody wants to work in the White House. They all want a piece of that Oval Office. They want a piece of the West Wing. So many people want to come in. I have a choice of anybody. I could take any position in the White House, and I'll have a choice of the 10 top people having to do with that position. Everybody wants to be there. And they love this White House because we have energy like rarely before.
That's, to be polite, not true. You get a lot of laughs and even more hell no's when you call around town and ask seasoned Republicans if they're open to joining Team Trump. And there's this stunning stat. The Brookings Institution says the Trump White House has seen a 43% staff turnover in 13 months. It affects policy, it affects personnel, it affects just about everything, including the politics and the zeitgeist of the Republican Party right now. I get the president making fun of him a little bit there. What he says is not true. He can't get, there are not people lining up to work in the Trump White House. I also understand that he needs to say that publicly. But what is the domino effect of Gary Cohn leaving?
Well, it's certainly not true that there are people lining up to work in the White House. Half the people who work in the White House complain about working in the White House and don't want to be there and would leave if they felt that they could. So that's certainly just not true. The president is likely aware of that because a lot of people have turned down some of those high-profile jobs, and that's why they have such trouble filling positions. That's why they've had 5 communications directors, several press secretaries. That's a reason that is a problem that they've had. It's just simply not true. And it's because of the very toxic work environment in this White House. And Gary Cohn resigned. We heard that he was going to resign last week. We knew it was on the horizon, but there were already 2 high-profile staff departures last week, one of those being Hope Hicks, a very significant departure. So Gary Cohn essentially waited until this week. We know he was obviously frustrated with the tariffs, but it just speaks to this larger problem of what's going on inside the White House. And a lot of people say palace intrigue is something that they bemoan reports of palace intrigue. They don't really care about who's up, who's down, but it is important in this White House because it's how policy gets made, and that is very clearly evident with Gary Cohn.
But there are happy people too, though. If you look at Breitbart, if you look at the president's More America First nationalist crowd, they think the Manhattan wing of the party, the globalist wing of the party, has been shoved out of the White House.
Look, putting that to one side, I would add that the president continues to do self-inflicted harm in the area of personnel by keeping in place these rigorous ideological tests for who he brings in, where anybody who criticized him on the campaign is still not allowed to serve in this White House. That's affecting him particularly in the realm of foreign policy, where we've heard stories that H.R. McMaster may be on his way out, and they are not entertaining anybody who leveled any sort of criticism on the president on the campaign trail. And I've heard somebody say, you know what, they got to start looking at people, what people have said since he was sworn into office. What have you said since 2016, not what did you say before 2016? And so I think that's another layer to this personnel shortage that the White House is facing.
You mentioned McMaster. I think a lot of Cohn's staff, which is viewed as very capable staff in the National Economic Council, may head for the exits. You have reporting with some of your colleagues on CNNPolitics.com that Donald Trump, in talking to Anthony Scaramucci and others outside the White House, is encouraging these attacks on the Chief of Staff, John Kelly. Hello.
Yeah, John Kelly, who's supposed to be kind of a moderating influence, the adult in the room, obviously gotten in some trouble over these last couple of weeks because of the Rob Porter thing. He sort of seemed to overlook some of the more concerning details about Rob Porter's life and marriages. So we'll see what happens. It's sort of not surprising that Scaramucci is out there, at least being encouraged by the president, maybe not at his behest. It just kind of speaks to him liking the chaos, him liking
That's
the
exactly
conflict.
it. The president bemoans chaos and says there's no chaos in this White House, but he's the one who sows some of it himself by actively allowing Anthony Scaramucci to go on TV and refer to the Chief of Staff as, quote, General Jackass. So he plays a large role in this, and watching his aides clash, he thoroughly enjoys it.
And he said it,
I
love conflict.
But yet, if you study the polling data, talk to Republicans who conduct focus groups, they tell you this constant churning, backstabbing, sniping, childish, immature behavior is one of the reasons they think there's a wave coming to blow them out.
The president, what he said about conflict, I think, was that he likes to get conflicting opinions. Now, that's a fine thing in a White House, but what the president is presiding over is this turmoil and upheaval and chaos among his staff. And what it people look to the White House for stability. If you're on the Hill trying to work with the White House and do something serious, you want to know that the person you're talking to is going to be there in a few weeks when this gets going. And I think it's a big problem.
And that person actually speaks for the views of the president, that the policy that person tells you reflects the White House's policy. And I think Republicans on the Hill, Democrats on the Hill, they don't trust that.
Right, they think the shelf life of most
Right.
what they're told is maybe 8 to 10 minutes, so you're lucky if it's 8 to 10 hours.